Right, umpteenth time today for this review. Yeah, not having the greatest days of it. Either way, Remington Express. So this is my AR1 that I've just got back from Lynn, and it's 100% improvement on what we had previously. What I want to do, because I've had both of them, I've had the XP and I've had the Express. So I think the best thing to do is start at the we could start at the stinky butt pad end, of which all Remington Expresses seem to have, and that is this little area down here. That stinks. Smell-o-vision, it just smells like a car tyre, to be honest with you, a brand new car tyre. So yeah, I don't particularly like the smell of that Remington. It's not too good. There's nothing Lynn can do about that, I'm afraid. Oh, it might be. Never asked him. Then you've got the stock. So the stock colours are different. They're ultimately the same stock. They just have a different varnish on them. And on the XP they use this really dark varnish, and it doesn't do the rifle any justice because it's got, you know, really nice graining on it. You know, I mean, that's one thing that attracted me to this rifle is the actual graining on it. The other thing about both Expresses that I like, XP and the Express, is a really sleek cheek piece here. Your head, just for my head anyway, which is sort of oversized and slightly double chin. It's just a genetic thing with Adams is having fat necks. It actually sits in there quite nice. Yeah, my head, I don't have to move my head around to get into that scope at all. I don't have to reposition it or anything. My head just comes straight into there, and I noticed that before we even had a scope on. And I was in the shop trying to decide whether to go for a Century, an Express, or a Terrace. On the open sights that you get on this standard Express, which is what this used to have, you were straight in there, down the barrel. It was just like, you know, you could tell it had come from hunting origins because you were just straight in there, no messing about, you know. The other thing I like about this is the safety. It's got the wire arc style push button and safety reset lever. That reset lever is incredibly quiet. Now when you're resetting that out in the field and you've got a safety catch that goes click, them little rabbits, they can hear that coming from a long way off, and if they've been overlamped, they'll hear that and they'll scatter like it's no tomorrow. We'll go internally now, because this is something common to, again, both the rifles. Internally, piston seal was absolutely chipped to death when I pulled it apart, and that was the point when I went, right, I've had enough of this. Let's get this done properly. Okay. The spring actually looks like it was a pretty good quality spring. It's got squared ends and it's ground, which basically means it's not going to damage anything inside. Okay, they actually spent a bit of money there. The only thing I would say is it's probably not that well controlled. You probably, you know, variations in processes over in China, from experience of myself, are pretty far and wide, you know. So it's nice to have on this one in particular a spring that's you know, got the Lynn Newington seal of approval, I would probably say, which, given his ties with VMAC, I'm not saying that's what it is, but I guess it's probably not that far off. The other common thing is the trigger. Now you've got a plastic trigger guard. I've kept that. I think Lynn does do an alley one for it, or was looking at it, but I've kept that because I want to try and keep it as original as I can. But the trigger, obviously this is brass. On the standard Remington it's a black metal trigger. It's quite long and it's quite flat and it's quite stiff as well. It's got a bit of creep in it to lighten it off, you know, I found. But even then I was still having to keep my finger, sorry, yeah, you don't fire it with your thumb. I fire with my middle finger. I was having to keep it right down the bottom just to get that bit extra leverage and try and ease off it a bit. It was quite a heavy trigger, to be honest with you, in there. That whole trigger mechanism is cast anyway, so I don't know how long that'll hold out, but you know, time will tell. I haven't seen any reports on the internet. The block in here is fairly average. Excuse me, potato repeating. Is pretty, you know, average, to be honest with you. Nothing amazing. I've seen a lot worse, you know, and for 150 quid I've seen a hell of a lot worse. Coming down the barrel, okay, now open sights are plastic on this when you get them, and you'll need to look after them, but to be honest with you, I never had a problem with it. Once it was in the bag, there's very little risk of it being bashed unless you impact it right at that point. Carrying on down the barrel, they both use the same barrels, the XP and the Express. They come about an extra 3 inches off this one. I think this barrel stops about there, so you're probably about here. And then on the XP you'll have a bit more length, and on the Express you'll have your sight. Now it's basically the Express XP. I do apologise for the state of my garage. I have a bad back and I've not been able to get and tidy it up, which was #1 priority. It pretty much looks like that. Okay, it's an awful looking thing. Imagine that in black. And that was a major gripe that I had initially with this rifle, the XP. Now whether that was bent and was clipping pellets on the way out, I don't know. Was it a defect with the barrel? We never really got to the bottom of it. Either way, at 10 yards it was shooting like a shotgun. At 30 yards it was even worse. I mean at 30 yards, 30 meters. At 30 meters I was getting 6-inch groups at best with the XP. With the XP, I'll say that again, put my hand over my mouth. With the Express, standard one, that came down to about 4 inches, 3 at best. The XP at 10 yards, when I took it to Solware to get looked at before I got it all swapped over, we were down to accuracies of about, that was a 10-yard range of, like I said, it was shotgun territory. This one, the Express, was spot on. At 10 yards, out to 20 yards, spot on. Past 20 yards it started to open up. Now you could tighten that up, I think, with better pellet choice, but to be honest with you, once I got to 30 meters again, which was pretty much on the extremes of where I want it, I still want a 1-inch group at that point, and there was just never going to get it in its current form. Whether that was down to chipped piston seals and naff internals, I don't know. Quality of barrels being unchoked, I don't know, to be honest with you. All I know is now I'm getting that kind of accuracy because I've got the AR1. The only other thing to say about these Remington Expresses is the scopes. Now the scopes, to be honest with you, they weren't too bad. One was a zoom one was fixed. The scope mounts are terrible, so get rid of them because they don't have stops in them to stop it creeping. You do have a slight serrated edge there. Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think you just sort of make it out, I think. Just under there, if I can get the light on it. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to do. But basically you have 4 of these little notches cut in. And I think there for the scope mount we have a bolt that goes right the way through. Not Picatinny, but similar, if you know what I mean. They're not that common to get. The problem is when you've got a clotter pin or a grub screw inside and you adjust it, you know, it doesn't take up the shape of that groove particularly well, so you still get a bit of movement. My Walther scope with its BSA style mounts, which are the large saddle ones, I had to file one of them down to make it suit, but that held up a lot better, which sort of gave me my groupings at 30 meters, which was, you know, shotgun territory, and about 3 to 4 inches for this one. Now I've got the one-piece mount on there. Them scopes, you know, they ain't going nowhere, but definitely invest in some better mounts for it. Overall, quality-wise, put the internals to one side, okay? Take either the clipping of the silencer out of the equation, and it's not that bad a rifle for 150 quid with a bag and a tin of pellets. You know, yes, there is better alternatives out there now for the Remington, but you know, you're still going to have to pay, you know, sort of Iraq, Walther territory for something that'll do that kind of business, if you know what I mean. This is shaping up very nicely, but like I said, in standard Express XP form, yeah, mixed feelings about it, to be honest with you. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I don't believe it performs that well. Certainly past, and all the reviews, when you look into it and search through the internet, nobody really goes past the 20-meter mark with it. The only one that I've seen is Airgun Gear Show, on the new one, where he's done the XP with a synthetic stock, and he hits an egg. Yeah, he probably can hit an egg. Well, clearly he does. But for what I saw with an XP, that would have been luck more than anything else. I'm not saying it's luck on his part. He probably had one that was shooting straight. In my case, it certainly wasn't. With the Express, yes, he probably would hit an egg a lot sooner. You know, but again, I wouldn't have the greatest of confidence with it. In 177, it might be a slightly different story. I don't really know, to be honest with you. All I'm saying is, you know, if you do get one of these, try and get a chair, try and shoot it at greater distances, and leave some comments and tell me what you think. You know, if you can get some pictures up there and put some links into the comments boxes to show your targets at 30 yards, 30 meters. I'd be interested to see them, because to be honest, I just didn't have that luck. But I don't think it should be down to luck whether you get a rifle that can shoot that range or not. But then again, it's a 150 quid rifle. Should it be shooting that kind of accurately at that distance without having to have tuning work done to it? I don't know. Have a look at the AR1 review that's on there now. Change your scenery. And thank you for listening. As always, please feel free to comment, but don't troll.